minutes. If nobody, I have, as usual, some nits and grits, and bits, so excepting for that, will somebody move the minutes?
I make a motion. to approve
So the minutes are approved. I guess the next item, it'll be the,
Approval of the minutes.
There's 2 minutes.
two sets of minutes, I guess we did that. Maybe what we should do is take the annual report of the audit committee, wait till Bernie gets here, and do the water now. So why don't we get started with those of you who are here to help us go through the, what happened to water? It's in the, oh, here it is, New York Water. So let's get started with New York Water, and tell us, just introduce yourself and the auditors and everything else.
Good morning, Acting Chair. Good morning, members. My name is Robert Balducci. I'm the controller of the New York City Water Finance Authority. To my left is Namika Sharma, who is now our new assistant controller for New York Water. Valerie Mahalo, after 20 years, has retired.
we, as soon as the city council signed or approved the legislation, we sent notices to approximately 19,000 seriously delinquent customers who owe us collectively about $220 million. Good morning, Mr. Chair. We continue with our operational excellence or OPEX program, which is now in its third year, and cumulatively we have achieved operating savings and additional revenues from an aggressive targeted large meter replacement program that have yielded a financial benefit of about $98 million. That's an annually recurring financial benefit to the system. And as Tom mentioned, we received payment from Exxon this year, $83 million, which is the result of litigation that took place in federal court 6 years ago for Exxon's polluting of the groundwater supply in Queens. On the capital program side, we will be putting into public distribution starting in May filtered water from the Croton Water Filtration Plant, the $3.2 billion capital project, and at the time that it was awarded in 2007, the largest single construction contract that the city had ever awarded. We continue to make good progress on what will be the signature project of the next 10 years, Water for the Future, which will provide a permanent solution to the leak in the Delaware Aqueduct, the leak which, depending on the rate of flow through the tunnel, can leak up to 35 million gallons a day. We are well into construction for the first phase of this, which is constructing 2 vertical shafts, one on each side of the Hudson River, to ultimately reach a depth of 700 feet. And at the end of this month, we will be receiving bids on the second phase, which is the construction of a 2.5-mile tunnel that will bypass the leaking section of the existing tunnel. And that will provide the needed security to continue to deliver the 1.1 billion gallons a day of water to 9 million people, as well as enabling us to go in and take the time we need to permanently repair the leak in the existing aqueduct. The mayor released approximately 3 weeks ago the preliminary 10-year capital plan, and for the system, that's a $15.5 billion plan for the next 10 years. That's approximately a $1.5 billion increase over the previous 10-year capital plan. The biggest single addition to that is approximately $1.2 billion to address long-standing needs for controlling the combined sewer overflows and further ensuring the cleanliness of the New York Harbor waters. We continue to have our aggressive green infrastructure program, and we will be building out 9,000 bioswales to capture and detain stormwater in sections of Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, those sections which are most prone to combined sewer overflows. And also as part of this capital program, we have an accelerated program to replace aged water mains and sewers, and for the first time, we're coordinating the replacement of our infrastructure with that of the 2 gas utilities, Con Edison and National Grid, so that we're replacing water mains, sewers, and the oldest gas mains. And the acceleration is to increase to about $200 million a year what had been traditionally a $100 million a year program to replace that type of infrastructure. Moving on now to the management letter, I think we made good progress in the last year on the two management letter items. One is the construction work in progress, we developed a solution where all prospective capital programs projects are being accounted for in the city's financial management system, FMS, and we continue to work on reconciling the construction work in process going to the accounting for our completed fixed assets for the legacy projects. On the customer information system and the aging of our accounts receivable, in the last quarter of this fiscal year, we implemented a number of solutions in the system to properly age the accounts receivable when we cancel charges for a customer and then rebill them. And we also, because of the benefits of automated meter reading, we are now able to have a definitive cutoff on June 30th for all of our customers whose billing period otherwise, because we bill quarterly for most of our customers, many of our customers' bills cross over from the end of the previous fiscal year to the beginning of the next fiscal year. Because of automated meter reading and being able to measure consumption at least 4 times a day, we're able to know how much our customers consumed through June 30th and bill that at the previous year's fiscal rates, and then we know how much they consumed starting July 1st and bill that at the next year's fiscal, the next year's water rates. And with that, we'd be happy to answer questions.
Sorry, I'm late. The third water tunnel, where are you on that now?
Yes, so in October of 2013, we turned on the remaining section in Manhattan, the portion that covers lower Manhattan. And so the water has been flowing through the tunnel for the last year and a half. There are still some projects taking place in lower Manhattan that we pay for and that are managed by the Department of Design and Construction to take the third water tunnel water and distribute it into the local distribution system. And then the portion of the tunnel that is in Brooklyn and Queens, which will provide redundancy to City Water Tunnel number 2, which was opened in 1936. The tunnel itself is complete. There are 2 vertical shafts that have to be constructed in Queens, and those will be constructed as part of the 10-year capital program. And we would expect to put that portion of City Water Tunnel number 2 into distribution in the early 2020s.
Because you want to remediate your either tunnel 2 or tunnel 1, they're pretty old.
That's right.
And you can't do that until 3 is completely operational, I guess. And
that's correct. With for the Manhattan and Bronx portions now, which are the redundancy to City Tunnel number 1, which was completed in 1917. We can open up that tunnel and inspect it because we want to make sure that we have a couple more years of flawless operation of City Water Tunnel number 3 before we do anything to Water Tunnel number 1.
yeah. I know the 1 and 2 are pretty old. You weren't able really to shut them down until you had 3.
That's right.
God forbid if something happened, we have no water. All right. In terms of the O&M, and then I'll turn it over to the other people on the questioning. Is that all of DEP or just the water portion of DEP?
It's just the water portion. Yeah, the approximately 4% of DEP is air and noise and hazardous materials enforcement, but that does not come on these books. That's
It's something like 90% of DEP is water and water related.
yes, it's actually 95% or better,
95,
Mr. Chair.
as much as that, I see. And you still have the aqueduct police?
Yes, we do. The DEP police force of approximately 188 officers, and we'll be actually starting a new academy class within the next couple of months to add hopefully another 35 officers to that force.
I think you need it with all the,
It's, yes, the police force, which was established around 1907, when we began to build the Catskill, Delaware system, and was originally established to protect the townspeople from the construction workers. Its focus has shifted primarily after 9/11, and their sole focus is to protect the water system.
they don't carry arms, do they?
Yes, they are. They are fully certified
They are now?
police officers
Oh.
in New York State. They're not peace officers, they're full police officers.
I'm sorry?
They're not just peace officers, they are fully certified police officers
Very
by
good.
New York State.
Sure, anything could happen, yeah. All right.
I see them all the time.
You see, well, because you have the house.
My property is adjacent to city water property.
I believe I've heard that before.
You have. What I always find disappointing is all the stuff that floats in the reservoir. And when the reservoir's down, nobody comes and cleans it out.
I'm sorry,
There's all sorts of stuff in the reservoir which shows up when the water level is down,
yes.
and nobody seizes that opportunity to clean it out.
Right, so we do have on-call contractors to remove the debris, and the timing of it depends on a number of factors.
That's local, I don't want to bother
Okay.
with that. But I do have questions, Bernie.
Go ahead.
First on the management letter. The beginning of the management letter refers to things going back, way back, and some of them haven't been remediated yet. So we'll go through it and wonder why it takes so long on some stuff. If you look at, the other thing I found a little bothersome is there's a statement here that something about creation of new system capital assets is not straightforward. I find that statement troublesome. Page 4, that's from the auditor, that's your response. It says, on page 4, you say that the reconciliation for eligible capital expenditure system is not straightforward. Does that mean there's something wrong with the system, or what is that comment intended to mean when it's not straightforward?
Okay, I think, well, first of all, the management letter is from the inception to now, so the comments are pretty much updated towards the end of what's our current.
No, I understand that, but just,
So,
it's an awkward word to see in a management response.
sure. I think we still have a challenge with the reconciliations, even now with as much as we've done, because we do have certain, as Steve mentioned, certain legacy systems where a lot of the fixed assets did not go through FMS. These assets went through older systems, and now we're trying to use one integrated system and let FMS be our, if I may, our book of record. These contracts are long, okay, long in time, and it's going to take a while before we get out of those contracts and those expenditures are off of those contracts. So we believe now anything that we put into FMS will be reported and reconciled with what FMS is using as a construction work in progress. What we use as a construction work in progress is a totally different method. So I think that's where, we have an issue that the auditors are saying that our method of construction work in progress, it's not reconciling to any given system.
My only comment, let me say this, if I'm a remote observer and I see the word not straightforward in a management letter, it rings alarm bells. So you might want to think about a different phrase to describe the situation.
If I might, I've tried to change this text, this was written in 2011, and I've tried to update this text every year. They will not let me change a word or add a comma. So they say that this
Who is they?
work and is done- the auditors.
No, this is management's
So
response.
we actually, it's from 2011.
I know,
And they
all
will
right.
not let us
Yeah,
change it.
yeah, so-
It's an unfortunate turn of phrase, in my
It
opinion.
is.
All right, now, there is a statement about something in here about the transfer on page 5, and this analysis. Does that have any impact on any bond covenants you have? What happens as a result of these analysis?
Which,
I'm looking at page 5.
Is
Second,
there a response?
yeah.
The 2013 response, or what year?
I'm looking at the first management response, second paragraph.
Currently?
Yeah, currently, you're exploring,
yeah, the balance sheet doesn't.
it doesn't have
does
any
not
impact on the covenants?
No.
Okay.
No, sir.
One of the questions that leaps out of this thing is when all this gets done, because it's year on year. It just, are you resource limited, and that's why you can't get it done more promptly?
No.
No, I
On
wouldn't. Okay, so as far as, I think the CIS system we strongly believe that this is an issue that will be removed in any future management letter. That took actually coding, and that actually took business process changes, both for actually the construction work in progress and on the CIS system. And then some solutions of bringing in IBM, I believe, and other consultants to modify our CIS legacy system that we had. So that took a while to do that. What's been done now, we believe that it still has to be tested because it's all been implemented now. One of the things, if I may, is one of the items that we were able to check is that, where Steve mentioned, we used to use an accounting estimate to record our unbilled amounts for the amounts that were not billed as of June 30th. So we have an accurate reading of now from the automated meters. So we did a comparison of our estimate to what was done in the past, and we were within 3%. So we thought that no matter as these, as the auditors have written out these management letter comments, we still feel that our amounts that were reported, there is no material effect on our financial statements.
Okay. And then there's a statement in here that the 2011 update, the new CIS, is unable to be completed as planned. Who was responsible for this, and how much more is that going to cost?
This was a contract that we had entered into with IBM, and they were unable to deliver to us what we had specified and what they had agreed to as a system. This year, we were fortunate enough to hire back our previous chief information officer, who had left DEP several years ago to go to the private sector. And so he and our newly hired Deputy Commissioner for Customer Services are taking a multi-step approach to assess what off-the-shelf systems are out there in the industry, and to determine how closely they fit our needs. And then that will inform our going out with a new request for proposals to modernize and or completely replace our system. This is, and we absolutely want to ensure that we do it right, is going to be honestly at least a 5-year project.
Takes a long time to do that, so he doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's, again, we want to make sure that we continue to maintain the improved customer service levels. Most importantly, we want to ensure that we continue to accurately collect and account for our $3.7 billion a year.
One of the things as you go further into this modernization, if I may use the word, is the question of the security of the system.
Yes.
And do you have somebody in your organization, group or bodies, that in charge with that fancy
Yeah.
word, cybersecurity?
Yes,
And how often does it report to your board?
So we have within our in-house Office of Information Technology a cybersecurity group. It's a small unit. It's 2 people. We have also we've undertaken a high-level security review of all of our systems through the Department of Homeland Security, and we are right now very close to engaging another security firm to do an assessment of all of our systems. So it's very important to have our customer information system be protected. It's as important or even more important, we have a lot of what are called SCADA systems, supervisory control and data acquisition, systems that are actually used to operate the drinking water system and the wastewater treatment system. And especially on the drinking water system side, we feel we have multiple layers of protection, but we want to make sure we're doing as much as we possibly can. So we're bringing in a security firm to do a very deep review.
I say that as somebody who's a director of a public company where I've been threatened with a lawsuit for lack of cybersecurity, so I'm very sensitive to the problem. And in the public company context.
I was looking at the management letter. It reminds me you would have years back problems with your account receivable system. But many of those problems, I assume, have been resolved.
Yes, and so they have been resolved. We feel because we put these system fixes in place in the last quarter of fiscal year 2014, as the auditors observed in this year's management letter, their first opportunity to test them and to confirm that they work in the way that we believe that they do is coming with this year's independent audit of the system.
In 15?
In 2015, yes, sir.
How many customers do you have? Has it been?
We have approximately 836,000 customers, and that it runs the range from single-family homes to the largest apartment buildings.
Huge, it's a huge system.
I have,
What?
so I'll wait. I have one, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You know, I'd like to, like what we did for the city's management letter, request a report back in June as to the status of these 2 items because they're so old.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
I
Would you
can't,
mind, would you be good enough?
A report, mid-year report, in effect?
Well,
As of June, like, what is the current status of these 2 items because they're so old?
Certainly.
that would be good.
I'll hand you this thing marked, but there's one thing here, it bewildered me. On page 8, you say rental expense increased by $11.4 million, primarily due to increased debt service. I can't
In the
understand.
financial statements.
In the financial statements.
Yeah, the rental payment is pursuant to the lease, is based off debt service. It's
It's
up to 15% of debt service. So as debt service increases, the rental payment increases.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to check like last night, but I was going through a lot of the stuff. Maybe, Alan, you know, how much of the old debt is still outstanding from water prior to the establishment of the, I don't,
There's not that much.
that much.
I don't know the figure off the top of my head. Actually, we usually get the number from the city controller's office, but it's
and it was
getting
exempt
smaller and
from the
smaller.
debt- It was exempt from the debt limit, I mean, so they were really able to issue this stuff
Right.
en masse as long as they had the customers to buy it.
Right. There's not that much left, though. It is
Not that
kind of winding down.
We gotta,
I have
we
one
ought to
oth-
give a certificate to Mark Page, who worked so hard in the eighties to establish the water authority and the water board, and he did a great job. I remember we were once at the council testifying at a budget hearing, and one of them screamed at us that we established a cash cow. Well, before you didn't know what you were collecting, and you didn't know why or where or when, and now you knew, and it was a lot of money. So I think he deserves accolades. Next time I see him, I'll compliment him. Go ahead, Mark.
It's trailing through a lot of these statements, and that is you carry your money market funds at the dollar. The SEC now changed the rules, so if a fund breaks the bucks, you mark it to market. You think that would require some comment that you carry it at, in a sense, at par, when it's no longer fixed that way?
We can look into that.
Take a look at that,
Yep.
because you know that that's been a significant change
Yep.
that the industry lost on.
Yep.
I'll give you this thing, there's a whole bunch of other scratches you can
Okay.
try
I
to decipher.
was raised an issue, not a drop dead issue, but why they don't do the statements in like a public utility format, like if this was Con Edison. In other words, the first thing on the balance sheet, the first category should be the fixed assets. That's what it's all about.
It's a public entity, you said.
I'm sorry?
When you're talking about Con Ed, it's a public entity,
Yeah,
and this has to follow the guidance.
but
as
this is,
prescribed.
this is like a public utility.
GASB, not FASB.
Oh, so GASB wouldn't approve of it?
It's different. When you go into 34 and how it's prescribed for earning, it's got
That's
to
a
match
little
up
more
to the
reason
city's
to do it,
finances
you
when
know,
it gets
you know what I
consolidated.
think of GASB, but that's neither here nor there. I'm sorry. Just a comment. Of course, Michelle Levine at the time was sympathetic. She says, you know, you're not wrong. I says, it's a utility. You're supposed to start with the fixed assets, but, all right. Jim doesn't agree, so.
You gotta follow two problems.
You gotta follow GASB, yeah.
And it rolls up into the city, so,
Yeah.
we'd have to somebody'd have to convert it all back the other way, Bernie.
Yeah,
into the
sure,
city.
all right.
That'd be a full-time job for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'll give you this.
Are there any other questions? Thank you again.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry I was late, I had
Hey.
some late, but it's okay.
Guys, you'll find comments here that I don't want to bother everybody.
Roughly 25 yards or meters.
25 yards. The trouble is, it's so freaking boring. After a while, I lose count of the laps. What's next, Mr. Chairman?
They're gonna do Hudson Yards next.
Hudson Yards.
So hello, everybody. I'm Alan Anders, Deputy Director from O&B, and have executive titles as head of many of the most of the city's financing authorities. So Bob Balducci and I we'll go through the various authorities as you call us up, and we'll start with Hudson Yards. And I do want to introduce, we have a co-presidential presentation today. As you know, well, I'll let Bob introduce the whole topic of Hudson Yards, but there are two entities: Hudson Yards Infrastructure Corporation, which issued the bonds and have to represent the interested bondholders, and then dealing with the developers and also overseeing the creation of the park, the amenities, is Hudson Yards Development Corporation. And many of you knew Ann Weisbrod, who was president of that corporation for much of its history until the end of the Bloomberg administration, when she decided to retire. And pardon? Ann Weisbrod.
Okay.
And then her attorney on HYDC carried on for another 6 months, but then we needed more full-time resources, and we went to EDC, which is actually doing the Park and Boulevard, so they're very much, always have been integrally involved. But so Mark Spector is the new president of HYDC as of 9 months ago? 6 months ago.
I think I should declare our firm is going to be one of your big tenants
Good news.
That's great.
in Skadden Arps.
That's great.
Okay, so you want to start off?
Sure, and,
Not for me, it isn't.
and,
I have just one overarching question. Have they built the platform over the rail yards?
So they
You
are,
can't build the buildings until you do that.
yeah, so the platform's under construction. It's not finished.
It's under construction.
It's under construction. It's not finished. And there's the related project, and that platform, it's been underway for a little bit. They're making progress. The first piece was they had preserved some space for Amtrak to connect in the future. If there is a project to add capacity under the Hudson, they've completed that and are doing the platform, and that's related piece. And then Brookfield is also doing a development above a platform, and that's also under construction.
So the developer's gonna build a building, is involved in the platform construction?
That's
And if it's more than one developer, there's more than one developer. If there's more than one developer planning to build a high-rise, they would be involved in building, in the construction of the platform.
So that's an important clarification, yeah. So there's a couple, when we talk about Hudson Yards generally, there's the Hudson Yards Special District, which is a broad area. And that's the area the city rezoned back in 2005 and then again in 2009. That includes a number of private developments. There's the related project, which will be about 6 million square feet of office, 6 million square feet of residential, as well as the culture shed, a public space. That entire project is above the MTA's rail yards.
Yeah.
And so that's the first major development. There's a second development that's above another rail yards in the Hudson Yards Special District that Brookfield is doing.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Brookfield's doing that one.
Yeah, but I was told that the building we're going to is actually not built on the platform, but built over dirt.
So this is the Skadden Arps, at least in Brookfield's
I know as we're
Manhattan
going there,
West.
I don't
Yes,
like it.
it's exciting, and I recently had a conversation with that development team. They're going full steam ahead. The IDA just approved some property tax benefits that Alan can go into for that project. So that project includes both building on top of the yards and then building on dirt. So it's both.
I was told the building we're going to is on dirt.
That could be. They could be phasing that first.
okay, so my role here, this entity is the controller. To my right is Jay Olson, who's from OMB. He's our treasurer for HYSC. And to the right of that is Warren Rupel, who I think everyone in this room knows, and he is the auditor for Marks Panic. Alan will take over with some of the highlights for fiscal year 14.
My title here is president. I think, Jay, you're actually vice president for finance, yes, rather than
Okay.
treasurer.
Okay.
It's a corporation, and titles are different. So, as you know, this project was to, basically to extend the central business district of, the downtown of New York, the main downtown, to the west, and create another whole central business district. I think it's 32 million square feet. so bigger than most cities in and of itself in terms of office space and key to the future of the city. And the theory was that if we extend the number 7 line that comes all the way in from Shea Stadium, comes across 42nd Street, and then when it gets to 10th Avenue, to have it come down to 34th Street, that Dan Doctor used to always say, if we build the number 7 line, if we build the transportation, the office development will come, and it's certainly been proven.
And that number 7 line is gonna be in operation sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I want to tell you about that.
Go ahead.
So, basically, the plan was to try to have the number 7 in operation at the end of the Bloomberg administration.
Sure.
And in fact, the tracks are all done, the trains are in, the mayor took a ride on the train, and this was December of 2013. And all the way through, we have very intensive oversight and discussions with the MTA, so that's the HYIC and HYDC throughout this entire period. And they did a great job building the subway and the tracks and the tunnel boring machines, pointing to the Water Authority, similar to what the Water Authority used for the third water tunnel.
Yes.
Ahead of schedule and on budget, up to that point. But then to put the thing in service, the last piece of it was really the subway station. And we have some, it's a big station, it's big modern technology. There are not only elevators, there's a diagonal escalator you've been reading about in the newspaper.
Go ahead.
It all needs to be tested. The fans are another topic we keep hearing about. And then, of course, all of the final testing of the signaling systems and so forth. So that's taken obviously another year. We're now into 2015. In the documents when we issued our bonds, it was agreed that we'll talk about the development, which is the source of the money the revenues we're bringing in, HYIC, the authority. The MTA was left any announcements on, opening of the system and so forth. They actually made an announcement about a month ago or so that yes, it's going to happen this year. Yes, it's going to happen sort of the first half of this year. We're all working. We think it would be desirable now that we're into March to have a sort of a firm announcement of when the opening date's going to be. And we're all working to that. We think that may be soon, maybe more than a month, but there will be an announcement of when in the middle of the year that will happen.
That's going to connect to the west side subways someplace?
No.
No, I'm sorry, your question?
Coming down on the west side of Manhattan?
No, once it gets down, it does not connect because there are no subways over there. It connects to the High Line. So if you
But
wanna
in
go-
terms of a rider coming down the west side of Manhattan on the
Right.
subway, you get out and walk, is that it?
Well, no, you can connect to the number 7 line. One of the advantages of
That's
the
what I
number
was
7
asking.
line is almost everything crosses
Yeah,
the number
you
7
can
because it
connect
comes
to the
across.
Needs changing.
Yeah, you would check.
Right.
Times Square is much
And the station will be on 34th and 10th, is that it?
Yes, yeah. And in fact, the last thing that will need to be done after the number 7 is in service, there's a second station entrance, not a second station. We were talked at one point about putting a station up in the north where the residential is, but that's not key to our revenues, so we didn't do it. Although we laid the groundwork for being able to do it later without shutting down the subway, which is smart. But there is a second parallel entrance so that as the towers go up and the usage increases, you can go down in two different ways,
Yeah.
two different tunnels. And that'll be done 2018 or so.
I think that's right.
Right. So,
If you had a guess, when will the related tower be completed, if you had a guess? I mean, the building itself, not just the...
Yeah, I think, so there,
Maybe I'll withdraw the question if you want me to, I'm just trying to...
We're scheduled to move in 2020, Bernie.
yeah, I think so part of it,
But you're not gonna be in a related building.
you'll be at a Brookfield building.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, part of the answer is related is probably the best folks to speak to that. I think there are 2 towers under construction.
Okay.
Tower 1 is vertical, you go down there, you can see it going up. I think right now they're planning on that construction duration taking another 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
They just broke ground on 55 Hudson Yards, which will be immediately north of the rail yards. And that time frame, I think also, we're talking another,
That's on a platform? and-
that's not on the platform.
That's not on a platform, I see.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, one other topic, preliminary topic to deal with, that I think is helpful in a number of respects, but critical for the city, is City Council made a decision before the issuance of the first bonds in 2007, then rather than capitalize interest and increase the amount of bonds that would have to be paid off, that they would be responsible for interest payments until the point at which the ongoing revenues were sufficient to actually cover, and with some coverage, the interest, or what will become interest and principal on the bonds. So, and that's expected, was announced by our feasibility consultant to be around 2026. And there's the interest, it's interest only until then, and then we re-amortize and have principal and interest, is $153 million a year. And so the city council was on the line potentially for paying $153 million a year of interest support payments. After the first bond issue in 2007, we very cleverly took advantage of the fact that interest rates were higher than they are now, and in fact, we could invest it higher than the borrowing cost.
And locked up.
So we didn't have to ask the city council for anything for a couple of years, because we had the investment proceeds invested and could use that, towards the, and then since then, we've been budgeting about $100 million for support by the city of the $153 million, and then usually there are other revenues that we could collect and so forth to make it a little bit less than $100 million. We have a provision when the towers actually are ready to go, that the developers can actually qualify for additional height for their buildings if they make a one-time payment of two different types. And then after that, when the building's completed, then they start making the pilot payments that permanently pay the bonds. So because of the development that Mark, I think, has started to explain, we have four or five towers either in planning, we have the one going up. We have been getting these one-time payments, which we don't budget because we don't know when they're going to come in, to the point where this year, 2015, the interest support payments are going to be about $23 million, not 100, but 23. Next year, we're budgeting 14, but we think that there'll be additional one-time payments, and the city council won't need to contribute anything.
Where do you record those, where do you record that revenue? Was miscellaneous revenue, or was debt service offset?
No, it's recorded in the financial statements under its title, so it's district improvement bonuses. It's
Transferable development rights.
Right, transferable development rights. You'll find that on page 19.
And the infrastructure?
In the infrastructure, yes, in the infrastructure, not in the.
All this
right,
is contained, self-contained. The city can't reach in for those monies. These are to pay off the bonds.
Right.
And to reduce the amount of interest support payment the city council has to provide, to reduce the budget impact that way, not by
Interest
floating.
support payment revenue, thank you, sir. All right. Oh, you put it into the debt service fund, I'm very conservative.
Yeah. So, Bob, what should we go through some of the revenues and expenditures, or we can take questions?
Yeah, I guess we can take questions. I mean, the revenues are those that are on page 19. We paid, as Alan said, we paid the annual bond interest, which was about $144 million. And we did receive a new item on the financial statements, is that we did receive a pilot payment, which is actually recognized. It's a fiscal year 15 revenue, but we received it in 14, so we showed it as a deferred.
The big landmark
yeah.
for the project. This is
First
the
one.
first
Yeah.
of the recurring revenues that will ultimately pay off the bonds.
Here's 100 yards.
And you have under the expenditures project, subway extension, so that's again further extension of the number 7, or finishing,
Finishing the
Okay.
station.
Okay, gotcha.
And getting it to the point where it can actually open.
And you'll notice that the trends of those expenditures are actually going.
Sorry?
The trend is those expenditures is going down as the
Yeah.
project is completing itself.
So our bond proceeds.
So when do you think it will all be done?
Well,
2030,
well, it will be, you know, if we're in service this year, the second entrance will be done in 2018 or 2019.
okay, that's not bad.
And unless there, I mean, I think that's the answer, it will be done by then, and
So the
simultaneously.
buildings will be built and the parkland will be established?
The park is about ready to open, the Park and Boulevard, do you want to mention
Sure,
that?
no, happy to. And it perhaps would be useful to clarify, I think, Alan, you were referring to the subway
Yes.
being completed, and the question, was the question about the overall development schedule?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that type of time frame, you know, I think it's always been envisioned that that build-out could take, you know, I think maybe taking a step back, when the city did the rezoning of the Hudson Yards Special District and created all that development potential, there was a lot of density and a lot of upzoning. That build-out, I think, could take, you know, full 10 years
Okay,
to
that's
get
what I
there.
figured.
Yeah, yeah. And then,
And you have a lot of lawsuits too, because the eminent domain, the city's property and whatnot, a lot of it was crappy property, pardon my language, but
Never heard the phrase.
they like to sue, right?
yeah, we are working through that litigation on the
Gotcha.
condemnation side. In answer, Alan, to your question on the parks, so the first 3 blocks of the park are nearly completed, and we hope to be opening them around the same time as when the subway opens this year. So it could be a good day for Hudson Yards.
And they're not far from the High Line, right?
No, they're not. It's quite integrated. So when the subway, the main subway entrance opens, that's block 1 of the park, and then the next 2 and 3 go north on the subsequent blocks. The High Line will dead end basically right at the northern edge of the Yards and related site, across the street from where our park begins.
The great thing is that, you know, the plan was always that you wouldn't expect the development to happen until the subway was just about ready to open. There's been a delay in the subway, but in part because I think of the High Line, frankly, and it's become a trendy area, and to not only to live in, but, you know, to work in as well, and walk down to the High Line, that the development has continued almost apace as we predicted it in Cushman & Wakefield projected back in 2011. So the development's happening even ahead of the subway opening, which is a great thing for the viability of the project. Any other?
I have one little question. What's a term bond?
Term bond is,
Distinguished from a bond.
It's a sinking fund bond.
yes, exactly. So we have,
Well, the sinking fund bond, I understand. I'm not familiar with the
No, they
concept.
use them interchangeably.
Interchangeable.
Go ahead, let it.
Okay, that's the answer.
no, I mean, that's basically it. You know, we basically have amortizations in municipal bonds every year, and you have a yield curve that goes up from year 2 to 20. So you want to issue those as individual maturities. But from 20 to 30, investors like liquidity, and so you basically create a term bond where you're gonna amortize in years 21 to 30 by lot. You're gonna call the bonds in. And so it's a mandatory sinking fund that retires bonds in the term bond, but it's a nice big number, like $200 million all in one maturity. Investors love that.
There was a time they couldn't sell them.
Yes.
They couldn't sell that. No, it's amazing. I always comment, I had been doing some consulting on some pension stuff in the MTA after I retired from the city. And at that time, Catherine Lapp was the executive director, and she called me in. There was a man talking about this who came to her. I don't know what he was talking about. He said, this is the last remaining. There's car yards. There's, I think, Macy's and some of the other department stores have warehouses. I know what he was saying. Look at how beautiful it's going to look. It takes time. So my compliments to you.
I have one question, just in terms of style. You have on the accounting policies a description of all kinds of policies saying they don't apply. And some of them are 2 or 3 years
She
old.
means you're taking up a lot of pages.
Why do you find it, and it's not only this one,
If
but
he
why
has
is
to,
it
they have
necessary?
to.
another GASB requirement?
So we have to discuss the policy and just say it doesn't apply, like a capitalization policy. We discussed it and it doesn't apply here since we don't have capital.
Oh, I understand, I just don't,
Yes.
I think it's a waste of paper. I'll give you this, you're missing some words here.
Okay, sure. I'll take them, actually, most of them are gonna be, I'm gonna take them back, so I'll take them from
Let
you.
it come around, don't throw it out.
I won't throw it at
That's all right.
Okay?
Okay.
Do any members of the committee have any more questions? Thank you again. Alan, you'll have to stay because
I
you're
will,
not on the side.
gladly. TFA, is that the next on the?
Anybody want to take TFA?
Will take you through some of the key points for the year. So just to remind you, this is the city's other major financing vehicle, other than the Water Authority, which does 20% of the city's capital program. The rest of it, the other 80%, is basically, you can think of it as divided between city GO bonds and transitional finance authority, future tax secured bonds secured by the city's personal income tax, and if ever necessary, it won't be, by the city's sales tax.
Raise your mic a little bit if you can. I think you do that. Okay. Good. No, you got it. Good, thank you.
That's the reason.
That's it. I don't, good.
Maybe taped, but I'll speak up, and I'll try to speak at that.
No, that's good. It's much better. Thank you.
The bonds that we issue, that, you know, the mainstream bonds of the Transitional Finance Authority, we issue second lien bonds, but from 2 of the 3 rating agencies, they're AAA. So this is, and remember the old, not so old days when we were worried about our ratings. The city's a AA. We alternate city, AA, Transitional Finance Authority, which is a strong AA and AAA on the rating agencies. Now, in addition, this has been an extremely useful vehicle for other things that have happened. You mentioned Mark Page when we had 911, got authority sort of within a week to issue bonds for recovery costs, additional bonds, and the Transitional Finance Authority is what we used.
For 9/11, yeah.
Yes. And then in addition, when we had the CFE controversy in terms of states inadequacy of state support for education, they gave, after giving us a couple $1 billion of money, the state borrowed for education capital, and they gave us $9.4 billion, a cap of $9.4 billion on state building aid that we could securitize to pay half of the capital costs of the Department of Education. And we've been working through that. There was a problem until this past January where they were recalibrating the program and we didn't issue what are called BARBs, Building Aid Revenue Bonds, TFA, Building Aid Revenue Bonds for the Board of Education. So it's an extremely important financing vehicle. We got city GO bonds, the various TFA bonds, and then the Water Authority bonds as our major sources. And you want to introduce the?
Sure. So the auditors on this is Deloitte, Glenn Georgia, and Joe is the manager. And Jay is going to take over now. He's the treasurer.
Okay.
Sure, thank you. Back in fiscal 14, the TFA did issue $2.8 billion in money bonds, as Alan said, part of the overall city-funded financing of the city capital program. We issued the GO bonds and water bonds for the city capital program. Also did a refinancing of around $350 million and reoffered some floating rate bonds to manage expiring loan facilities. Distributed $3.5 billion capital bond proceeds. Financing capital program. The TFA did not issue BARBs in 2014. It issued subsequent to fiscal 15. So that rising credit ratings and continued market access.
You have no trouble with market access.
It's great when things work.
I guess, yeah, being the state collects the personal income taxes on behalf of the city and then remits them, so you go to the state for your personal income taxes?
So personal income taxes are collected by the State Department of Taxation, but remitted on almost a daily basis to TFA trustee first for the benefit of
Before they give it.
bondholders, and then we, after making our funding requirements.
And once you
remit
bet your
to the
debt
city.
service, and then you give it to the city.
And the same story on the building aid, where we work with the state to identify building aid that's again paid directly to the indenture trustee for the benefit of bondholders. After giving the funding for their debt service needs, the remainder then gets paid over to the city.
Makes for a very good credit. It really does.
And the coverage is, the reason for the ratings is
Yeah.
we've got like $8 of taxes for every $1.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think you told me once, or maybe it was in the budget message, that some of the TFA debt is now, some of the outstanding TFA debt goes into the calculation of the debt limit.
Yeah, the story there is the TFA was created to give the city debt incurring power over and above the constitutional debt limit, but when that cap got lifted, amounts over $13.5 billion outstanding scored against the constitutional debt limit. So the $13.5 billion for capital, the recovery bonds are sort of a separate thing entirely, but amounts north of that eat into the city's debt incurring power under the constitutional debt limit.
So a portion of it goes into the calculation.
Correct.
Okay, all right. It was great. It was great. It was really honest. You really scraped it. You were really hitting up against the
Yes.
debt incurring limit. I don't know what we would have done for a capital program without this.
So that's the third, maybe the third thing to thank Mark Page for.
Pardon me?
Maybe that's the third thing to thank Mark Page for when you say.
I think I remember, I was retired already, and I came by, and Joe Loder had typed the TFA stuff. Mine is budget director. He did it on a larger sheet rather than on an 8.5 by 11. Maybe it was things like this that way, but it worked. Questions?
Gave up trying to get that stuff out,
What?
all the useless stuff.
Well, the city couldn't operate without.
No, I'm just talking about the Gatsby.
Oh, the Gatsby, he hates
So-
me. What do you want to do next? The PSAS,
Well, Star was the sort of the exciting story of the year, so maybe if you want to deal with Star.
oh, so you want to do STAR?
Yeah. Star has become joining, once again, PSAS and FSC as the inactive issuers.
STAR is
Last calendar year, last fall, it became a very active issuer. If you remember, Star was a budget item, budget balancer in 2004, when we had 4 or 5 years left in Big Mac.
Yeah, you want to get rid of it, go ahead.
And we were paying $500 million a year in city sales tax for the last 4 years of MAC. And as a budget balancer for 3 or 4 years, the state said, we'll guarantee to you $180 million of state sales tax for the next 30 years. And you can securitize that by issuing bonds. This is the Sales Tax Account Receivable Corporation, I think is what the STAR stands for. Pay off the MAC, save the $500 million a year for 4 years of city money, and we, the state, will incur $180 million a year for 30 years to have essentially state debt pay off MAC. And of course, there was a city-state symbiosis in the financial crisis in any event. So, 10 years went by, that was 2004. Interest rates, of course, we all know, came down a lot. And there was Star sitting there with its high interest rates. So what we decided to do was to just do what looks like kind of a traditional New York City refunding of Star by Star. and basically, lower the interest rates and create some excess that we could then, like we do with New York City traditional refundings, we could basically pull forward into the plan years. So we did last September a $2 billion refinancing of what was left of the STAR bonds, and we produced $656 million of savings for the city that we took over fiscal years 16, 17, and 18. And so now we can kind of put STAR to bed and just let the state $180 million a year continue to pay it off, and we got a nice benefit for the city budget.
So the refunding proceeds were invested in, I guess, federal securities.
Two things we did with it. One was
Those
the
bonds.
traditional defeasance, federal securities, and the other was the excess monies that we created because interest rates had come down.
You could use this budget.
We paid off TFA bonds.
You,
We paid off some TFA bonds in years 16, 17, and 18, and that's where the budget savings came from.
terrific.
Other than that, I don't know, do we have any?
No, you did fine. So actually, I think what you're really saying, Alan, is the city is not required to pay any debt service costs to STAR. Just
Never was. It
Never
always
was.
just the state.
And never will, I guess.
Never will.
Never will. And when does STAR go out of business?
It'd be another, I think, we didn't extend, so it's another 20 years.
You'll have a job.
We can ask questions 20 years from now.
Go ahead.
Listen,
These financing arrangements are really very clever, the city, it's a big entity, they have to do it.
You have something on the balance sheet in the footnote on 23, which I think is wrong.
Page 23?
You say treasury money market funds. I don't know such thing.
No, I didn't think so.
You have
When
money
I
market.
went through this thing, I thought you'd say that.
It's
When you show under the investments,
Treasury money market fund.
No such thing.
So I guess this is money market. Money market's made up of treasury.
Treasuries, but that's not a word. And then you also indicate here, all investments held by STAR are invested in securities, and you list them, and you don't show the money market funds. So somehow you left that out as a category in which you're invested. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the investments here, and I'll relook at it, I think the disclosure requires investments, the money market funds are considered cash and cash equivalents. Yes, it is an investment, but I don't believe we have to, it's investment over, I think, 90 days, it has to be actually described in here. But I'll.
The language just looked,
Yeah, and it's just following what the disclosure requirements are.
again, Gatsby and I don't agree.
and STAR has no employees, right? We run it.
Right.
I'm sorry, OMB basically runs the
Exactly.
finance unit, okay. And the LGAC revenue is the state revenue? The Local Government Assistance Corporation. They help us sometimes, right?
It's become a little bit more complicated since then because we.
I'm sorry?
It's become a little bit more complicated, just, it's kind of interesting. You know, you had LGAP, you had us, and then now the state has its own sales tax bonds. So there's various ways that the state is using its sales tax.
You have to see the acronyms in the Health and Hospitals Corporation. It can drive you crazy. Are there any other questions on STAR? Members of the committee?
Not for me.
TSAS,
Yeah.
Which one are we doing now?
TSAS.
tobacco?
The
Oh,
tobacco
yes.
stuff.
Some merchant did that.
You asked them last year if they're still making some money on this, and I think you said yes, there's still some funds that keep trickling in.
Well, yes, in addition to there are monies that continue to pass through to the city. The model we use is that we create the authority, capture money upstream, pay debt service, and then flow through the city and don't waste any of the money. We haven't issued any bonds for the Tobacco Corporation since 2006.
Okay.
There's the famous litigation that the tobacco companies have, which will result in them paying monies and then setting it aside in an escrow until the litigation is resolved. We had the first major resolution and favorable. There's settlements in the various states. You know, it's basically the 50 states, and then we're derivative of New York State's litigation. And we actually had a settlement that goes back to 2003, where we actually got some additional revenues last year, more than we expected, about $20 million, because we resolved the first litigation successfully. Unfortunately, we're going to have to successively every year, unless there's a global settlement, and there could be, with New York State and the big tobacco companies, and settle 2004 this year, 2005, 2006. The litigators think it's a good settlement, a good, solid legal decision.
Have to do it.
So that's where we are, and we just, every year, we're just following the progress of the litigation.
Yeah. There's tobacco revenue that's pledged. What's the unpledged?
The unpledged is the city's portion. All the revenue gets paid over to TSAS. And per its new indenture, a little under 40% is pledged for the benefit of bondholders. A little over 60% goes to the city. So the unpledged portion is payable to the city. The pledged portion goes to pay debt service and operating costs.
It's worked. And
It was basically a way to get some additional capital financing for the city. When the opportunity arose, when there was the global settlement, and we had our share coming in after New York State got its senior share.
And, yeah, some of these bonds will be out until 2042.
Yeah, that's the state of maturity, but the amortization really depends on revenue. The hope is that those bonds
It could be
retire
some-
early, provided
Yeah.
revenue's there, so.
Or you may decide to advance refund and push them out to 2060. I'm teasing. No, it works. You got the, and
next, Jerry?
one of your statements, you said that because of the sequester, the federal sequester, the shutdown, somebody lowered your rating from AAA to AA for the holdings that you had and to defease the bonds.
A while ago on
Yeah.
Treasury securities, once
Yeah.
upon a time, but that was a couple of years ago.
All right. I thought that was an interesting comment. Are there any more questions? Any questions on TSA?
No?
The securitization,
Yes, the FSC, Financial Securities
Yeah.
Network. Two others, and then the tax money. So the FSC, this really was a one-time transaction
Yeah.
where we had some, interest rates had come down, and for tax law reasons, we couldn't refinance the bonds directly. So we did a defeasance, changed to after maturity, and freed up the treasury securities that were already in the transaction, and used those securities to secure the new bonds that we issued to pay off the old bonds. And because interest rates had come down, we took some financial benefit out of it. And then it just sits there and pays off to maturity, and nothing more to be done for it.
And how, until when will these bonds be out?
2020.
What?
2020.
Oh,
Few more years.
it's a few more years.
Jay's not counting on that.
What?
Jay's not counting on that.
No. It's like you, what was the courthouse that was built in Brooklyn? What?
130 J Street, you
Yeah, I remember that,
Yeah,
that's finished,
we were
but,
able to get rid of that.
I'm sorry?
We were able to dissolve that
You
corporation.
should, good. maybe you'll be able to do that here too. Are there any questions?
I have one.
Go on, please.
It referred to non-capital as assets, certain assets are non-capital. That's, is that something I'm accustomed to seeing? Capital, that caption?
Yes, you're looking at the MD&A, I believe,
Not-
right?
Yeah,
And that's, again, I'm sorry, that's another layout that we're required to do. So,
Quick.
sorry about that.
Okay.
Where is the auditor isn't here from?
Yes, the order
Yeah.
is.
Oh, okay, so, no, I was just,
Kind of way easy. What
Oh,
next?
Tax liens?
okay.
So this is, giving you that, okay.
Oh, this thing.
So,
The doctor says it's good to get up and walk.
Jim, where were you when the control was off?
Helen, you'll?
Yes.
Tax
We're
liens?
in, So this is, you okay? So this is a great success we've had since, I think it's been 15 years now that we've had the tax lien sales. And I think I always start by saying, you know, it's misleading if you look at the proceeds of the tax lien sales. It's, you know, this year we had $56 million of proceeds for collecting property taxes, and another 15 for water liens, so that's $70 million. $77 million budget doesn't sound like much, but the value of this is, this is the tail that wags the dog. The value is not the lien sale. It's getting non-payers during the process of the 90-day notice, the 60-day notice, the 30-day notice, to stay out of the lien sale. So what I went back and looked at for this year's lien sale was the amount of the liens at the 90-day point. Remember, the total was $70 million we collected once we got to the end of it, and we actually went through the sales and the people who actually, the scufflaws who wouldn't pay. But on the 90-day notice, 90 days earlier, there were $850 million in the sale. This is where they go into the newspaper and they're all listed, and $650 million towards the property tax, and $200 million for the water lien, for the water system.
And the 71 million, Alan, is applicable to certain tax years.
Yes,
In other words, that's the aggregate collection for each of those years. That was collected in 2014,
right.
but it's never over.
In calendar 2014 was last.
Okay, but it's never over, right?
Yes.
Because you have, well, all right, you have the 1998, I don't know, I don't think there'll be any residual there. You had
The
a
1998 trust is sort of the aggregation of all the
Old
liens
stuff.
Right.
after trusts pay off
Okay.
the debt, in which case the leftover liens get aggregated in the trust.
and
We have a different, we had create a different trust every year.
sure,
For the
no,
new
no,
sale. And
but-
so the sale we had last fall was the 2013 trust that we actually created in calendar 2013. And then in 2014, we created the 2014 trust, which actually we sold in last fall, which was fiscal 2015. So
yeah.
You produce those individual trusts, you produce a document that kind of puts the story together, puts in one package.
well, there's an offering document, just it's a securitization and
But I
bid
mean,
document. And
if I'm an investor, I'm concerned about individual trusts. But if I'm somebody who's looking at the city's financing and what they're doing,
You want
there's
the
a
bigger
story
picture?
here that's not in any of these documents that somebody might be
It's
interested
in
in.
another document. Do you want to mention?
There's a little bit of it, I mean, in the private placement memos for each tax lien, there's a private placement
Right.
documents that describes each structure. Now, if you're talking about the entire city picture, if you look at the city general obligation disclosure, under the description of property taxes, there is a description of the enforcement mechanism the city has in order to, foreclose on properties or to sell the liens to a third-party trust. Additionally, when we discuss every year of the debt service levy and the tax levy, there is a discussion of how much money comes in through the tax install. So it is touched upon in the city disclosure.
This is kind of buried in the middle of a,
Yes. But on the other hand, the investors in this are really looking to the collection mechanism, not to the strong city.
no, the
plan.
investors read the individuals and care. But if I'm somebody who's looking at the city's overall finances and how we're doing things,
Right.
the story's a good story that's kind of buried.
And in the Great Recession of '08, '09, basically our collection rate stayed above 95% on property taxes. It was just an incredibly successful story.
There's two parts to this. One is the investment, and the other is why are you doing it, which is what you started.
Yep, yep.
And that's the part that doesn't come out
Right.
as clearly.
Right.
Picking up on what you said, the 1998 trust, is it finished or it's still going to continue?
It continues on, I don't know how long I want to say in perpetuity, but the liens have to go somewhere after we dissolve the trust if they haven't been fully resolved.
Okay.
So it's sort of the final resting place for these liens until they ultimately get resolved.
Because, and I would expect that there's a large increase in 14 in doubtful accounts. I mean, you're writing off a lot of it.
Right.
It's like, it's almost like taking accounts receivable to a collection agency. You're not gonna get very much if you went, you know what I mean?
I
It's at that
understand, so
point.
you're really talking about the most uncollectible, but the thing about the 98 trust is there are no bonds outstanding. So once you initially securitize those liens, you've got bondholders looking at it, and then the bonds ultimately get paid. Whatever's left over by definition hasn't been resolved, hasn't been paid. But we're still going to make sure that, we go through the enforcement mechanism. So keeping them in the trust at least keeps the servicers on the job to go through the process.
But maybe we should introduce the rest of our group, including our financial advisors as well.
So
There's Tom Gallagher, a financial advisor from the PERC, who's been there from the beginning. And then, have you introduced the,
These two gentlemen are your auditors?
But yeah, there are a couple of parties here, as Alan said, from the PERC, our program manager, Steve Cate and Tom Gallagher. For the accounting side, Warren Rupel with Mark's Pen isn't the auditor, but assembles the financial statements. The auditor firm is Toski Schaefer, who is here as well. And I believe there's some required communications that the auditor needs to make before this committee. We should dispense with that now or later.
And the in-rem program is gone. This substituted for the old in-rem program.
and then we don't have to handle,
I'm sorry?
we don't need to be the property owner for all the properties that the,
No, of course, no, you don't want the property.
It's much
You
more
want the
efficient.
taxes, I understand.
Why was the 2011 trust transferred to the 1998?
Why, did you say?
Yeah.
Because all the bonds that were issued by that trust had been retired, so the trust, really didn't have any more bond.
Why not go the other way to keep 2011, which is more current, open than
Well,
98?
I mean, it's simply a matter of convenience as to where things aggregate. So we're getting rid of the 2011 trust, and 98 is just sort of the consolidated.
keep the number of trusts down. I mean, every year as we pay off a deal, it goes to the 98 and we consolidate. Otherwise, we have a whole stream of additional trust and administrative costs.
But
Oh, goodness.
you want to mention that?
Yeah.
Somebody had handouts?
Required disclosure.
Yes.
The long one, actually.
I'll call him back in a half hour.
Thank you.
Even better. My name is David Sparrow. I'm a director with Koski and Company, and we are the auditors of the 5 individual trusts. As a result of our audit, you have 5 different packages in front of you. I'm not going to take you through each one of them because other than the name on the front and the numbers that they contain, each package is virtually identical. Each one of those packages contains the financial statements, a report to the board, and a management letter. The management letters for all of the entities are clean. There are no management letter comments or findings of any nature that we need to disclose to the audit committee. The opinions on each of the financial statements, and I suppose there's one thing that I do need to emphasize, and the fact is that these are not our financial statements, these are your financial statements. You engage us for a very simple purpose and one purpose only, and that's to express an opinion on them. And the opinion on each of these financial statements that we've expressed is what's now referred to as an unmodified opinion. Used to be clean, but nevertheless now the vernacular is now unmodified. Meaning that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects. Everything else is basically the same. I'm not going to apologize for the GASB presentation. They've been beaten up enough.
No,
for
but
this
you
pres-
can't
this-
apologize
this
for
meeting
leaving
so
the
far.
T off, the capital T off the city.
Probably the most significant item to discuss here is the fact that there is a report to the board, and that is the required communication that our profession dictates that we need to convey certain information to the boards. And the report is the same for each of them again, other than the name that is accompanying it. There's just some disclosures relative to your significant disclosures and your estimates. And in this case, and it's already been discussed briefly, the allowance for uncollectible accounts, big estimate. What are you going to get? Right now, the old trust, as we've talked about, the 1998, which is the receptacle for all of the other trusts that have been closed. Right now, you have about a 60% or slightly in excess of 60% allowance for uncollectible tax liens there. The rest of them, the current trusts, 13, 14, and 12, the allowances there are between 1 and 6 or 7%, so they are relatively low.
That's all.
And that's all, because those are the current liens, and the probability of collection there is obviously the highest. What winds up in the 98 is the stuff that hasn't been collected in quite a number of years, and quite frankly, they're probably less collectible now than they were back then, and the concentration of the uncollectability of them only gets higher as that pot gets diminished by people that actually make payments. So, but that is the single largest estimate in your financial statements. There are no really new accounting policies. You do follow GASB. There are no, what's the word I'm looking for? There were no material weaknesses. There's no significant audit adjustments that were made. There were no consultations with other auditors. Marks Paneth and LaPerk are all involved in the process, and you have a collection agent that assists in the lien collections themselves. So those are all situations that are in place. There was one item that Mr. Larson had raised, and I'm not sure that if this is really on point with addressing it, but in preparing for this, I did a little quick study to go ahead and prepare for myself. And while the comment was made earlier with regard to the amount of collections that had occurred prior to the amounts being actually transferred into the tax liens during the process of collection before the transfer occurred, I did take a look and aggregated all of the tax liens, because the issue that I have with them is probably the issue that you have, which is that I got 5 documents that are each telling me a snippet. And I think from a policy standpoint, the committee and the city would like to know, in the aggregate, how's this thing going? And in the aggregate, what I did is I put together my little cheat sheet, which I aggregated all 5 of them together. And what I can tell you is that in 2014, There was slightly over $100 million that was actually distributed out of all of the trusts collectively to the city. That's what the distribution was that the city actually received. They received $155 million collectively in each of the individual trusts that actually took on additional liens during the course of the year. In the aggregate, between the amounts that are due to the water board and to the outside bondholders, that number's about $110 million, give or take a few bucks. At June 30th, 14, collectively, there's about $35 million in liquid assets and about $365 million in non-allowed for tax liens. So at the end of the day, what I'm looking at is collectively, you have about $410 million in assets. You owe between the bondholders and the water board about $110 million. The residual ultimately is city's funds at the end of the day. It's just a question of when will it occur. And last year, it threw off $100 million. And that really effectively brings my presentation to a conclusion in the absence of any questions that any of the members of the committee would have.
But let's take the 2012 trust. That will be active in 2015 as well?
I think those
It doesn't end, in other words.
No, the trust will be consolidated as the 11 trust did once the bonds are paid. I think those bonds may have been paid already. So
At June 30th, there was $10 million in bonds at that point in time.
Yeah, they paid off
so
the paper.
those bonds have been paid, so there's no bond liability in that 2012 trust, and we would go through the ritual as we did with 2011 to consolidate those liens into the 98 trust and dissolve the 2012 trust. So fewer of these things lying around.
But I think.
In the 2015, there'll be the 2015
Yeah,
trust that's gonna come in.
2015 trust,
Eh,
the
yeah.
life of those
Yeah,
trusts are going
yeah.
to be determined by
Yeah.
how quickly the bonds are paid down by collection.
Ad
So-
hoc aggregate summary is kind of what I was talking about, with a little bit of description following of, okay, 12 is going to disappear and become part of 98. I know it's not a GASB report, but it'd be nice if we could produce some kind of document like that from a policy, from an oversight, which very much explains why we're doing all of this, versus picking up each individual one and then having to kind of put that package in your,
Like an MD&A, for
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, be an across all the trusts MD&A kind of a document.
We can take
That's
that
actually,
up.
that summary information is actually put together for the water board folks, because they report their respective pieces of that, so it's.
I mean, I think it would be very
Why don't we
positive
send-
on your.
Why don't we send you that, or you would add it, take a look.
Okay.
And then we'll take that under advisement as to whether there's some other place we can.
Send it to the secretary and she can
Yeah.
just.
It's always best to send it to us, because then she'll see to it that we
I'll
focus
get to
on
see
it.
it.
You
And
have,
and you, sir, are like, I guess for want of a better term, an agent for these liens?
Well, we're the program manager,
Okay.
and we assist the city in all phases of
These
managing the lien program.
We used to call them the financial advisor, and now they're doing so much more to help us with many things. We thought
No, I-
program manager was a better.
I understand. Do a lot of jurisdictions use tax liens?
It varies. New York City is the only jurisdiction that securitizes. And part of that is, there's two primary reasons. One, it's just the size of New York City. It creates enough tax liens each year that you can do a securitization. And secondly, the values are there underlying the property in New York City.
Yeah.
And they have a very robust system of valuing properties that a lot of other cities don't. And the underlying, values aren't necessarily there. So New York City is the only city that has successfully kept the program alive for any period of time.
Could I have one thing to that?
Sure.
And again, this is the Mark Page financing model, the residual going to the city. We have folks have come in and met with us. They kind of don't come as often now because they know the model works for us, offering to do bulk sales. That's what many localities do throughout the country. A private company basically takes all of the liens, and after the, they basically do what we do. Instead, the profits flow to them as profits rather than flowing through to the city. And so I think that our model of capturing the residual is what makes it different from what everybody else does.
And you say 2012 that bonds are paid off, it's over, but there are no more, but there shouldn't be any more tax liens from 2012, right? Because of that 90-day.
Correct, but I mean, the charges for a given year aggregate in a given year, so the delinquencies that will arise prospectively relate to charges, in a future year. But each year is its own collection, framework.
And that statistic that you quoted, Alan?
Yes.
That's, that was for 14 or the 800?
That was the calendar 14, which was the 2013 trust, right, that we sold in 2014.
2013 trust was before what?
2014.
The last sale was 2014, for the 2014 trust.
Okay, well, in any event, the most recent one, we had outstanding and potentially to go into the lien sale almost $1 billion of delinquent property taxes or water liens, and we got it down in prepayments just by incentivizing because of the lien sale. We got that down to 75.
So the property owners paid it?
They paid it, yes.
They kept their homes?
In the old REM days, they didn't pay.
I'm sorry?
In the old...
Yes. That was a sad situation. And the state got involved. I remember being at the council when they, at the state ledge committee for pension legislation, and they would, call on these people. It was really very, very sad. It was very, very sad. To get some relief because at the time period had passed.
One more last thing perhaps to say that I'm not the only person here that has multiple hats. Hopefully saying this, we should have said this before, won't cause Nicole Fleming to actually get up and go to the other side of the table. But Bob Balducci supervises all the work on the public corporations and the public authorities, but this is a trust, and so Nicole Fleming and her staff supervises all the work we've been talking about. Thank her for that.
If I could ask you a couple of questions. First of all, why do you have unprotected bank deposits of the size you do?
That's Nicole.
Yeah, you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars at risk.
And the money cycles in and out pretty quickly. I mean, we've not been actively managing the investments and cash management. If we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. I hear you that that's more than the FDIC threshold, but I mean, we're not really in the business of keeping money around for any period of time. It's, they're paid out to bondholders quarterly. It's paid out to servicers, I think quarterly or even more frequently than that.
Now, what's your average bank balance, though?
I'm sorry?
What's your average bank balance?
It's got to be pretty small.
Yeah, I mean, basically,
All right, you made a business judgment that it's not worth doing, is that it?
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's really, pretty labor intensive, and given the turnover, it's not like a debt service reserve that just sits there.
All right, I just wanted a question.
yeah, I was gonna say that all the trust accounts daily, Bank of New York sweeps them into AAA rated money market accounts. So most of the funds, actually, the cash flow is invested.
Okay. Now, you say the Bank of New York. I think it's the Bank of New York Mellon now, isn't it?
Yes.
So your footnote's wrong in that respect. And then the last question is with the servicing. Have you had any trouble with the servicing people doing things that a lot of other service people have been doing?
We were very careful in setting up our relationships with them. They understood that these were city taxpayers and city water rate payers that basically we were dealing with, and so they're under careful guidelines that while all this has worked well and they get the right to pay off, but the kind of abuse.
They've been careful about it. Because I noticed you changed the servicer at some point.
That happened, yes. So we obviously, DOF, Department of Finance, and DEP would know about it, let us know about it. They're all very involved in the whole process.
Okay, thank you.
So, a property owner, let's say an individual property owner, doesn't pay their real estate taxes for 1 year. The property isn't seized, they get some,
Well, no, it's not seized. If it meets the threshold for sale, which is,
I'm sorry,
if the lien on the property meets the threshold for sale, it would be.
when is the lien placed on the property? If it's 1 year, no taxes?
It's placed the day the taxes are due.
Really?
So for this fiscal 2015, the lien is placed on the property, on the city's records, on July 1, 2014.
They actually place the lien right away.
That lien will be sold in the summer of 2015, if it meets the criteria.
When you say place a lien, I mean, the city's books and records fair tax, which they sort of tabulate all the fair taxes, that's their system of records. The day the charges are billed, it effectively is a lien on your property. But we don't record a lien on the property unless the trust purchases the property, and that's an actual document that gets recorded on ACRIS, on the sort of, the land records. But just so you know that for the delinquency rules that the city have for 1 to 4 family properties, you actually need to be delinquent on property taxes for 3 years before you can qualify for sale. For multifamily properties and commercial properties, it's only 1 year. So for homeowners, they have a bit of a longer time to kind of catch up on their own before they're eligible for sale into the program.
So you're giving him some time to...
Yes.
In addition, the Department of Finance and the Water Board have payment plans that you can enter into.
Yeah, no, that I understand.
So all of these
If
rules.
you had to guess, most of this is commercial properties?
By dollar value, yes.
Yeah, it would have to be, given
Yes.
the size of the,
Yes.
so they're notified of the lien as to when they miss the pay, when they haven't paid their taxes?
Yes, the city sends out quarterly statements of accounts, so
Yeah.
people know, what they're owed. What
Okay, no, I remember. You didn't have to securitize this, you could have taken it in as regular revenue, right?
Well, this accelerates that, though, by.
I'm sorry?
This accelerates it by about 2 years, so the money, otherwise we would get, over that period of time, we get, immediately in the year that we would have liked to have collected it.
No, but let's say you didn't securitize this into a bond, you could take this in as general fund revenue once it's
Well,
sold.
they would need to actually pay.
Pardon me?
They would need to actually pay. I mean, the delinquent tax is by definition not paid. So it's not gonna come in unless there's actually the specter of foreclosure, so we have.
So what comes in is the bonds that I've issued?
Yes.
Well, and, yeah,
That-
the money
that's the-
comes in the form of the bonds,
Bonds.
otherwise it would be a trailing collection that the servicers would get over time.
So there's effectively been an acceleration of the cash flow to the city as a result of this, is what's really the end point.
That's an interesting way.
What else we got, Mr. Chairman?
Is that it? Okay. All right, the program is working.
One more set of scratch marks.
Yeah, no, we have,
Oh, I should give it to
we
her?
have the New York City Technology. That's a Deloitte account, right?
I just want to get rid of all these books.
There's a big garbage can back there. I'm not taking them home.
I'm not me neither. My apartment building, it was such a demand that the managing agent went out and got a shredding service. And you can now come down and deposit what you want shredded.
How many apartments?
144.
How you doing, Alan? Okay, Alan, how's everything, all right?
Probably a good number like you that bring a lot of work home, read it, and then you don't bring it back to your office. You want to shred it,
Well,
get rid of it.
Yes,
wife
it's Mark.
loves to shred everything. She can rip us off with the address tag. I bring it all back when we have a huge shred in the office.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you took something home to read, you might just pull out certain pages,
Oh, I see that.
and then you say,
Tim,
I'm not putting the rest of
I'm
it.
sorry I didn't
Right.
meet you, I was late.
All right.
Because that's what I would do
No problem.
when I
It was
was
a horrid
working
morning.
on FMS.
Good to see you.
Would just pull out the pages.
Yeah.
Because some of the things that I took home were like this.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah, no, I know, he's in a voting capacity.
Gotta tighten this damn thing up. It's bad weather here this year. Snow gets into the booth.
It looks like a ski boot.
No, the ski boot's closed.
They hurt. I get chilled, right?
I gave
All
up
right, this
skiing.
is the
It
New
was
York City
terrifying.
Technology Development Corporation.
So my name is again Bob Balducci. I actually am the assistant treasurer here. So this is one small hat that I wear. When this was first created, this company, my group, as you know, we do several of these. We were enlisted in doing the accounting, just accounting to scale. It's just much more, cheaper for us to do the accounting for TDC. So my role here as assistant treasurer, I help in their back office accounting, accounts payable, and also help compile the financial statements. So what I like to do is I'd like to introduce the two officials here. One is Eileen Clary, who's the acting president, and Paul, who's the treasurer. Joe is treasurer still?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bert's still the treasurer. So I think, since this is the second time, I think it would be productive if Eileen just reminds what's TBC all about. And Eileen.
Okay, great, thanks, Bob. Hi, Eileen Cleary, I'm the acting president of TDC. We are a separate entity, city-funded or tax dollar-funded. We have a contract with the mayor's office, and we are providing predominantly IT project management services and risk monitoring services. Mayoral agencies we are available to them if they would like. We are available to mayoral agencies for our services if they choose to use us. We will come in and double team agency employees to help them implement typically large-scale IT software implementations. Historically at the city, there have been some large-scale implementations that have not gone well. They've run way over budget. They have run very late in delivery. And we are an alternative to that. So instead of also hiring out for external vendors, it is possible to have us come in and we will double team with the agency. We will do vendor management in order to ensure that these projects are healthy, that they have proper budgets, they have proper resourcing, that they have realistic timelines, risks are monitored and managed, and accurate reporting is put out. We typically, as I mentioned, support large-scale projects. These are projects with budgets of over $5 million, $5 million in multi-agency, or if it's a single agency, it would be usually $25 million or larger. And then additionally, if there is a mayoral priority, we sometimes get involved in those. TDC currently has 16 employees that are out in the field, double teaming. We are currently on about 9 projects, serving about 8 unique agencies, and 2 initiatives that we have been involved in the past and continue to be involved in that I think everyone in this room would know. One is the Pre-K for All initiative. We have been very involved in that, and additionally, the ID NYC initiative. I'm going to hand it back, Bob, I think to you.
Sure. So,
Thank you.
So they got a grant in 13, they got a grant in 14. That's basically your revenue to do the work.
Yes, that's part of the contract, yes.
Yeah, the contract, our current contract ends on June 30th of this year.
Of 15.
Of 15, correct. And we are in the process of requesting renewal for up to 2 additional years.
Go ahead.
So with regards to the financial statements, we took this, from its inception. They're simple because the only revenue here source is the contractor revenue, and the expenditures are administrative, because this is it's a service company. There are some outside contractors here that they get paid for, and there's a whole process where TDC follows city-like rules in hiring and procuring them. In the financial statements, we report, on, governmental, which we have a government-wide, and we have government funds, which are exactly the same, because there's no reconciliation between.
So you have to do it.
Right, yes. And that's it, so I'm open for any questions that you may have on the financial statement and.
How many employees do you have?
It's a total of 18 right now. There are 16 that are in the field. We have, for instance, an office manager and a chief operating officer, in addition to 16 people in the field.
And they're in the field, you said?
Yeah, meaning they're out at
They're out
agency
at
sites.
agencies providing support.
Correct. That's correct.
How do you get the work from the city agencies? Do you bid on RFPs?
No, we don't. It's usually a referral from the city's chief technology officer, Minerva Tantoko. So we do get various leads. We feed them to, there's also a technology steering committee that is run by the CTO or the chief technology office, and we typically get our work directed from there.
I tell you, you got something here. It can't be GASB that requires you to refer to a trust indenture. Because I doubt page 11.
Well, there's no trust indenture here, so.
That's for sure. You can't blame that on GASB.
What paragraph?
About 4 up from the bottom. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, sorry. I don't know where that came from.
Yes, that is wrong. So this is trying to describe the spending policies, but there is no trust. Thank you so much for that.
The only thing you could do with this,
That's copy and paste.
the only thing you could do with this committee is find typos, because everything else is, now, do you have your own audit committee? I doubt it.
Yes, we do.
You do, actually? And you report that to them? And they read this thing?
Yes, we do.
So why didn't they pick that up?
I don't think they read it word for word.
I don't think they read it.
And the consultants that you hire are,
It's actually quite rare that we hire consultants directly through TDC. If consultants are required for a project, it's usually done through the client agency. Just an instance of, we do have a consultant that came through us recently. It was a very specific technical skill that was needed on a project. There was a time sensitivity. It had to do with, it was time sensitive to get this resource or this kind of a skill. We did, and the client has now since hired an employee, and there's going to be a knowledge transfer soon.
Given what I understand about this sort of thing in project management, this sort of thing, how does the city pay competitive salaries for the kind of skills you need to do this sort of thing?
Our pay scale is slightly better than city employees. The other appeal to TDC, and this goes for myself, I come from a banking background, is the fact, and we actually really like to hire people from large consulting firms. Typically, you're not a road warrior. You're home every night. And we appeal to people because they've already made their big money in consulting or in banking. Work-life balance is a little bit better. There's no travel. And people, we are typically looking for people with about 20 years experience or more. So we're seasoned.
Oh, and the travel schedule is the one that.
Right there.
And
it appeals to them. And in some cases, people are also looking to give
they're
back.
going to stay in the city.
Yeah, exactly. You may travel to Queens one day.
Yeah.
You don't need a passport for that yet.
No.
Not yet, no.
You gotta have a little fun.
And we don't appeal to everybody, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
I think it's pretty clear. All right.
I'll give you this one too.
All right. Okay, thank you very
Great,
much.
thank you.
Sorry it took that long to get to you.
No problem, thank you.
The management letters. You got no chief.
No materials, what's his name?
Yeah, but you got the wrong bank.
please, just for a minute.
Of course.
Yeah, just-
Thank you.
Which agency do you work for?
I'm sorry?
Which agency do you?
I actually work, I'm an employee for the New York City Water Finance Authority.
For who?
The-
Water finance.
So it's an
Oh,
agreement that we.
so
He's over at
in addition to
OMB.
They pay,
Yes, so, you know, we allocate the management.
all right.
He's on Lend-Lease.
He's on so many things.
He's too young to remember Lend-Lease anyhow.
So,
He used to work for me.
Oh, really?
you want that?
We got the,
All right, let us go. We'll put it back. No, we'll put it back.
we got our report.
Well, before we get to the report, because it's the first meeting of the new audit committee year, I'd like to open up the floor for nomination for chair.
Okay. So I better take it. Yeah, no.
All right, you better take it, Brett.
Okay.
Nobody else wants it.
All right.
Not a lot of
I'll
volunteers.
second it.
Okay.
So by unanimous vote, the chair selected is Mr. Bernie
You get a
Wilson.
pay raise for that,
Yeah.
right?
So I'll turn it over to you, Bernie, for the annual report.
Yeah, I went through it quickly. My only question is, and I'll call for a vote for it, to accept it, is, I started to go through it just rather late at night, the grid. Who prepared this? You did this? What? And did you double check it there? I mean, with the timing and all? All right. Then I'll entertain just one comment. I spoke to Michelle Levine a few days ago, and she couldn't understand why our year ran from February through, from February to February. Why is it a calendar year? Why is it a fiscal year? I don't know. Do the members have a problem with that it's a February year, or you don't care?
It goes back to the bylaws.
It goes back to when when it was enacted. All right. With that said, could I have a motion to approve the annual report of the Audit Committee of the City of New York?
You know, it's the style
Okay.
of this thing, in the annual report, to have the business open the floor for the nomination. It's not elegant.
It's not a,
It seems to me it should say Mr. Rosen was elected. He just,
I don't mind it. The thing is.
it bothers me. If I were writing it, I wouldn't write it this way.
This is the 37th report. I didn't think we were in business 36th. I didn't think we were in business that long.
Yeah.
Sure we were, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Goes back to the
This
beginning.
goes back to the other, I think
I was the chairman of this thing years ago,
I know you were, but.
It goes back to the federal guarantee.
It goes
Right.
back to the federal guarantee.
coming out of the crisis.
Yeah, all right.
Now, the other thing
So would you-
another comment, Bernie. It seems to me, one of the things the audit committee does is it actually makes comments and suggestions about the reports from the agencies it reviews.
All right.
That we do, and we ought to say that. Otherwise, it's-
All right, so she'll, what's her name?
We'll
Okay,
work on it.
yeah, okay.
I have some comments, but like, it's like after Mr. Rosen was unanimously voted as chair, why do we have to say Mr. Rosen will continue to serve until it's accepted?
that's why I say it's not elegant.
All right,
No, I don't think it's needed.
all right.
Now, the other thing is, I didn't know we picked the actuary.
So,
Bernie?
yeah, sure.
When
you
did we
do.
ever do that?
No.
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
We actually
Yeah,
voted on it?
Yeah, we voted on it, sure.
Okay, shows you what my memory's like.
Yeah, well, Gabriel wrote it now. I guess the thing is, do you want to hold off the vote on it, or you want to
No,
accept it?
we can
with
accept
the
it, the
All right,
minor
they'll accept
comments.
it, and they'll give you the comments, okay. What's next, Secretary?
Adoption of bylaws.
What, where are the bylaws?
They're in the back of this.
Annual report.
Okay,
No change to it.
no change to the bylaws?
Oh, the drafting leaves me cold, but there's nothing we can do about it. The use of the word "said" in documents went out 25 years ago.
Well, this goes back to 1990.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was before that, the original, and the fiscal crisis.
Yeah.
I remember I gave a talk on this once. All right.
anybody in my firm puts the word
So,
"said" in, gets
Why
dinged.
don't we adopt the bylaws, adopt the report, and if there's any comments, we'll give it to this nice lady so we can incorporate them, and that's it.
Okey dokey.
And is that the end here?
Nomination of secretary.
Oh.
I make a
Oh, so
nomination
sorry.
to appoint Jackie.
I'd
Is it
like
Thompson
to
or
open
Warburton?
the floor of nominations for secretary. I nominate Jackie Warburton Thomas as the secretary of the audit committee.
I offer her my condolences, but I vote yes.
All right, I figured that's unanimous. That's it? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, Jackie, here are some comments on the minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's it. No.
Oh, wait,
Thank
we
you
know
all.
we have a session with just the auditors now, right? The
No,
exec-
we don't. No, well, why do you need them? For a special session?
No?
Did you want an executive, I don't know, did you want to meet?
No, I'm not, sorry, where I come from, every meeting you have a special session, a separate.
I don't think we did one for the audit.
I'm
I
sorry.
know, my view of it is that in the world I come from, wherever you have auditors, you have a session with them alone. But if we don't want to do it here, that's okay with me.
No, unless there's something, some special.
Just routinely, but.
Okay. Thank you all for your patience.